Hi everybody, we're going to do another video on the series of City and Guilds Carpentry and Joinery, and we're in the unit 208, and it's carry out first fixed frames, partitions, and stairs. And we're going to continue with our dealing with frames. We need to talk about fixing foam. Fixing foam is a polyurethane foam, exceptionally sticky. Now, very common when fixing frames and linings. It can be applied using handheld tins with a pre-fitted adapter. If more precision is required, then we can use an applicator gun. But in both cases, there are various types of nozzles. But the thing we need to remember when using fixing material like this is not to use too large a gap. Okay, I had an experience many years ago in which we were using too much foam in too much of a gap, and anything over a certain size, it begins to swell exponentially. So if you're not careful, it will get bigger and bigger and bigger. It'll push so very dramatically that it'll actually bend the frame. So that's something to know about. And what we were doing to avoid that is we're putting noggins in the frame as firmly as we could all the way down, and making sure as well that we weren't putting into gaps that were too large. That's the important thing. So these are particularly useful tools. They're a great facility, and sometimes it's possible to actually use them as an alternative to actually as an alternative to wedges and all those other facilities. It's very important to make sure the frame is actually fixed in its position. And let me tell you a little story about fixing foam fixing. On one occasion, I had to take a door and its frame out of one position and put it into another position. And I didn't even have to take the door off the hinges. I locked the door, and I put some battens across the face of the door, just screwed into the door, screwed into the frame, screwed into the door, into the frame, right across, extending 5 or 6 inches beyond the frame. And then I got a sword and cut all the fixings each side and removed the whole thing, including the door and the frame, in one. Put it into the new opening, and then I fixed the battens on all the different fixing points all around, and I put some squirt on each of the fixing places. And I left it till the next day. When I came back the next day, all I had to do is remove all the battens. It was solid. And then as I took all the battens away, I found that I could undo the lock and open the door. The door opened and shut perfectly normal. It hadn't come out of its frame. And I was able to then just put some fixing straight through the foam. So this is one way. This is a particularly useful addition to the joiner's arsenal. Now, of course, ceiling frames and linings. On the inside, we want to be using a painter's cork around the inside, because we want to be able to paint over the seal if we need to. And painter's cork is a flexible cork, but it is able to be painted on. Paint will sit on the surface, whereas the sealant that goes on the outside, whatever color it might be clear, or it might be brown, it might be white, it might be gray, but the sealant on the outside is of a different material altogether. Funnily enough, it's made of the same material that a waterproof coat is made of. It repels water because the water droplets are too big to pass through the sealant, but it does allow air and moisture to pass through. So it's one of those particularly great sealants. You can use it to fix your coat if you need to, which is very interesting. Now we need to, when we're looking at fixing doors and fixing frames, we need to think about the dangers involved. And there's lots of dangers. We might think of dangers with manual handling. We might think of the dangers of using power tools. We might think of the dangers of noise, excess noise. We might think of the danger of falling over something when you're working with tools nearby. You might think of the danger of electrical shock when you're working with tools. You might have to think about the danger of working at height. You might actually have to be quite high up to fix some of these things. And of course, there's the danger of fire. Okay, all of these are dangers when we're working on a site, and we need to sort of just be aware that these things can occur. They should really be on a risk assessment, and of course, any company or any group of people over 5 people need to have a written risk assessment. Now we're going to think about window frames and their fixing. The first thing about window frames is we need to do the preparation for fixing window frames. And before fixing, it's always good practice to check all the sizes and check the plans. Make sure that you've got the right window for the right opening. These are very common mistakes. You'd be surprised how often these mistakes can occur. Now, there's a wide range of windows. Let me just list them for you. There's traditional casement windows. These are the old-fashioned English style. Then there's storm-proof casements. These are the Canadian version, which is able to resist fierce storms. There's sliding sashes, which is the ones with the weights in. And then there's bay and bow windows, and there's pivot hung windows, and there's tilt and turn windows. Now, we know what a tilt and turn window is. A tilt and turn window is a window. They're generally plastic or aluminium, and they have a large handle. And in the closed position or in the up position, if you turn the handle sideways, you can open the window sideways. If you turn the handle downwards, then the windows will tilt downwards towards you. So those are very clever and excellent windows. And then, of course, there's ordinary roof lights. So these are all the different types of windows. The windows are constructed out of all the same material that different doors are made out of. So they can be made out of softwood, they can be made out of hardwood, aluminium, UPVC, steel, and all the modern production methods of up-to-date technology that design these windows to withstand the rigors of weather, but also to withstand the problems of the passing of temperature from the inside to the outside. So they're all catered for that, and they have special breaks composite in the window which stop heat transferring from the front of the window to the back. Installing them is relatively simple. It would be very similar to the way in which we install window frames. In fact, very often it's exactly the same shape that's being installed. Sometimes we have an opening which has brick on edge across the bottom or shoulder courses across the top. But either way, these bricks on the front at the bottom are put on an angle so that when water hits them, it rolls forward and drips off the edge of the front of the brick. Installing box sash windows. Now, this is very interesting. They are installed behind the front leaf of the brickwork. So the brickwork opening comes across, and these fit just behind them. Okay, so that from the outside, you don't really see much of it at all. You might see a little bit of it creeping out at the side, but in the main, the box is on the inside. And that means that the inner brickwork or blockwork is actually cut back to the width of the window. And sometimes the only way in which they can be fitted is by using little straps, or sometimes you can have a block of wood in the wall and you just pop some nails in through the corner. That's about the only way they can be fitted. Of course, they need to be sealed all around the outside, and they need to have an architrave going right across the surface of the front of it, quite a large architrave, going all the way around and going down to usually a small window board, only about, say, 3 inches wide, but the window board will go right to the outside of the architrave and be finished quite nicely in the corners. Bay windows and bow windows. Well, there's a number of different bays and bows. Obviously, you can have a bow window, which is semicircular. You can have splayed or canted bay, so that's straight and a straight, so 2 straight pieces with a mitre between them. You can have square or rectangular bays, and you can have a combination of bay and square. So you might have a window, another window, and then a long one, and then another window, and another window. So there's lots of different combinations in which you can have bays or bow windows, but they're all fitted in approximately the same way. They do tend to have to be bolted together themselves. The windows themselves, the timber will actually pull away from itself, and so it normally is bolted flat and bolted secure. And generally speaking, with bay windows, if they go out very far, there's either brickwork to support them, or there is a large timber gallows bracket on the outside just to give support. Sometimes handrail bolts are used for securing them. And then pivot hung windows. Pivot hung windows are installed in the same way as any other window. And we talked about the tilt and turn. They're also sealed in the same way. Sometimes small small steel straps are used. So the window's put in place and there's a strap, and the strap sticks out top and bottom and side, and you just put screws into the straps and then you carry on with them. Roof lights are a special traditional design. However, in the modern age, these roof lights have become a very, very, very sophisticated piece of equipment. They normally come complete with the frame already in the frame, and you literally take them out of the packet and they're put into place, and their straps are already on them, and the straps to fit it in, but they're made in such a way that the flashing around the outside covers them and clears all the water, both from the top, around the sides, and from the bottom. They tend to be quite expensive. They're usually made of timber, but they can be made of UPC and aluminium and galvanized steel. And they're all constructed together. There's some very sophisticated ones. There's windows which you can have whereby the window at the top will open up, okay, and the window at the bottom can push forward and create a little mini balcony. And then when you want to, you just pull it and it shuts, and the top one comes down. So they're super things altogether. Good. We look forward to catching up with you on the next video, where we'll be talking about window boards. So see you then. Bye for now.